Hello. First, I'd like to thank you for clicking on my video and allowing me to share some of my life experience with you. I hope you can use some of my life experience to help guide you through your life's journey. With that being said, let's get into it. Knowing what to do with the rest of your life is a very hard question to answer. The younger you are, the harder this question is to answer. Sometimes there's a lot of external pressures on you to answer that question as early as possible, whether that comes from friends, family, social media, or just your own outlook in life. But it's okay if you don't know the answer, and it's okay to try different jobs until you figure it out. I don't feel like I truly knew the answer to that question until recently, and I'm 28 years old. That is 11 years out of high school, 2 years out of college. But in that 11 years, my life has changed a lot, and so has my priorities. So let me take you through that 11 years and explain the decisions behind choosing a job, why I left it, and how my priorities have shifted throughout my life. I hope to show you that it's okay if you don't like your job, or you want to try something else, or you go through an identity crisis like I did. If you set goals for yourself and know what your priorities are, you'll eventually figure it out. So let's start with the summer after I graduated high school. I knew I didn't want to go to college, didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, in all honesty. Just kind of really lost and taking it day by day. I had an idea that I wanted to go into the military, but really did not have a timeline on when I was going to join or what branch or what I was really going to do. I remember one day I was playing video games in my room and my mom walked in and said, "You need to get a job." She was right. I really was doing nothing. So that day I went to an Army recruiter and signed up, and I was leaving to basic training in a couple months. It was a big decision. My mother and father were sad and proud at the same time. Let me tell you though, the amount of benefits you are entitled to once you get out is something I did not fully understand at the time. It was really one of the best decisions I could have made at the time, being so young and not knowing what to do with my life. In a later video, I want to discuss the benefits you do receive once transitioning out of the military, so make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss it. While I was in the Army, I met my wife and we had our first son together. Once I met my wife and we had a son together, my priorities had shifted. My priorities were her and my son. The Army was taking a lot of time away from them, and I wanted to spend more time with them and be next to them. Instead of re-enlisting, I got out of the Army when I was 21. When I got out of the Army, I started working as a cable contractor. This was one of the jobs I did enjoy doing a lot. I enjoy meeting new people, driving around the state of Colorado, working with my hands, moving around, and the challenges each job brought. During this time, my second son was born, and I quickly realized this job does not pay enough to support two children, and I would have to do something else again. Again, my priorities had shifted. So I ended up using my GI Bill and going to college. I know what you're thinking. College, how does that pay the bills? Let me tell you, I was making a lot of money in college with all the benefits I was entitled to. Like I said, I will go into more depth about that in a future video, so please subscribe and don't miss that one. During my time in college, I was working as a supply chain analysis and eventually a supply chain manager at a small local business. Getting both my bachelor's and master's degree took 3 years, so during the first 2 years, I wasn't really worried about what I was going to do with the rest of my life. So coming a year before I graduated with my MBA, I have a bachelor's and I start applying for jobs in different areas. I'm really not hearing anything back, which can be very disheartening because, you're told, oh, you have a degree, you have military experience, you should be very hireable. And in all honesty, that was not the experience I had. After getting through a couple of classes, I'm starting to realize that I do not really connect with anybody. This made me kind of have a thought about what I wanted to do once I graduated college. Kind of a childhood dream of mine was to become a police officer. So I pursued a career in policing, and that's around the time I graduated with my MBA. As you know, policing doesn't require a degree, but it's always good to have kind of backup options, plan Bs if something doesn't work out. So I started applying to some local agencies and got hired at one of them. I did enjoy my time before the academy and enjoyed some of my time in the academy. started my field training, but my phase 2 and phase 3 officers were really terrible at training, at explaining things, really at how to do the job as a police officer. Really not something I envisioned the job would be and how to police. Also during that time, my third son was born. I was feeling burnt out and tired of being in survival mode from school, the academy, and training. I ended up making the decision to quit from policing because, in all honesty, the job that I thought would be a dream job had turned into a nightmare. This is something I want to go into depth about in a future video. Also, policing was taking a lot of time away from my family. I felt like the FTOs I was with really enjoyed doing overtime hours. So I was working 14 hours a day, and that just burnt me out to no end and took so much time away from my family. Again, my family has always been my priority, so I shifted my career focus to try to maximize my time with them. So after policing, I got a job at Dish Network as a business operation analysis, and it was something I thought I could find joy in, maybe moving up the corporate ladder, maybe moving into supply chain, but really it was just a corporate nightmare. And 2 months into that job, I basically had an identity crisis at that point. I thought to myself, what am I doing with my life? What have I accomplished? I thought I was doing all the right things, join the military, go to college, get married, have kids. For what? A mediocre corporate job? What was the point of all of it? I was depressed and I was in a really dark place. And reflecting back on it, going from a nightmare dream job to a nightmare corporate job was not good for my mental health. Well, after working at Dish for a couple months, I got a job as a buyer at a medical device company. This made my commute a lot easier and was back into the area which I enjoyed, which was supply chain. I did that for a couple of months before I got into a federal procurement job. This job I'm very happy with because it is remote, so that means I get to spend time with my kids. I get to see them every day. They're home with me. My wife's home with me, so I get to spend every day with them. I'm very happy because it's also on a 4-10 schedule, so that means I get every Friday off. So getting 3-day weekends every weekend is also a very nice thing to have. Gives you more time to relax, recover, unwind, and plan out family stuff. With all that being said, I wanted to let you know that it's okay if you don't have your life figured out after high school. I didn't have my life figured out. It's okay if you don't have it figured out after college. Again, I went into a career that I didn't even need college for. So it was like, what was the point of college? And it's okay if you don't have your life figured out after your time in the military. Again, everyone wants you to know what you're going to do once you get out. But, sometimes you don't know what you're going to do. It's okay if you don't have it figured out well into your 20s. Like I said, I barely figured it out at 28, and I wouldn't be surprised if I feel like it changes in 2 years. But you have to try different jobs. See what you like, see what you don't like. Sometimes a dream job is really a nightmare, and you won't know that unless you try it. And maybe your dream job is a dream job, and it's everything you imagined. Don't feel stuck in a job you hate, and don't regret not pursuing a job you always wanted to try. Again, this worked both ways for policing. Policing was a job I always wanted to try, so I had to pursue it. I knew if I didn't pursue it, I'd probably always have that regret in my life. But then I ended up hating it, and my family, my wife was all like, well, why are you leaving? It's a job you wanted so desperately. But I listened to what I needed. I felt like this was not a job that I could do the rest of my life, and it would have a detrimental impact on my life. You have to try different things to know what makes you happy. The only thing you shouldn't waste is your time. You shouldn't waste your time at jobs you hate. You shouldn't waste your life moping around doing nothing and not knowing what to do. You have to try stuff. Like I said, I think joining the military was a great decision I made early on in my adulthood because of all the doors it has opened up for me. I hope you do try different jobs and pursue different careers and not be afraid by outside pressures. Do the job that makes you happy, and it doesn't matter what others think of it. If the job makes you happy, then do the job. I hope you all have a blessed day, and I will talk to you on the next one.